Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, and I have Jason Vego, CEO and co-founder at Bevs. Welcome, Jason. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm just as excited as you are.
Yay! It makes it that much more fun, doesn't it?
It does.
So where are you calling from, Jason?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
LA. Nice. Is it nice and sunny there?
It's not that sunny, but it's probably sunnier than most other places in the US right now, so I can't complain.
So let's jump right into to Bevs here. So let's start from the very beginning. Where did you come up with the idea? Like, how did it start?
Yeah, so the idea is really credits to my co-founder, Victor. He's owned and operated liquor and convenience stores in California for now 39 years, so literally 4 decades. He's owned and operated convenience stores. His family, his friends, his network, they're all deeply in the space. He's the one who originally came up with an idea to help convenience stores. Unsurprisingly, he'd tried restaurant technology, grocery, delivery apps, sort of you name it, and he just said, no one's really building anything that really solves problems for liquor stores and convenience stores, and they are different enough businesses. I've known him since I've been a kid. So I met him actually in first grade. So when I was like 6 years old, and he was my basketball coach growing up.
Oh,
And
no
so
way.
in 2019, yeah, so we go way back. And in 2019, he calls me with that scenario. No one's building anything for liquor and convenience stores. There is a gap, and I want to build something. And so that's how this all got started. Not my idea at all.
So how does a basketball coach get into that? And then the second question is, why are you his first phone call?
It's a great question. I'm flattering, I guess. But no, I mean, we had a good relationship for a lot of years. We talk about business and things like that. And so how he initially started was exactly that. Like, I don't exactly know where to get started. So he started looking for app development agencies, things like that, to build something, to get something off the ground. At the time, I actually didn't join him right away. So I was building at the time a software platform for dog groomers. So I was still building technology for the kind of SMB, the small business space. That failed. And I wouldn't say it's a good thing it failed, but it's a good thing it failed in that it sort of led me to the journey of teaming up with Victor. And yeah, I think of his family and friends and network, I had maybe a little more experience in at least technology, right? I spent my entire career to date in tech, and I had some startup experience. And so I was one of the first he called, and maybe, I don't know, maybe he called a bunch of other people before me that said, no, we're never
like,
going to know.
No,
No one's ever asked. Like, this is crazy. I don't want to start this. So maybe I was the last resort. I'm the only one who said yes, but I like to believe I was on the short list.
I'm pretty sure you were. There's not very many people that have those types of experiences.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
Okay, so I'm still a little confused on how a basketball coach even is into convenience stores. So I don't know if there's any story there if you want to move on.
Yeah. So it was outside. His full-time job was not coaching basketball. He did it as a side gig. His son was on my team, and that's how it went. So he'd owned and operated stores his whole life. And the fun parts were that, like, we'd literally go to games, and then we'd go to his stores after. Obviously, when I was like 9, I wasn't getting alcohol from his convenience store, but we get snacks and chips and sodas and waters. And even like through the years, right, the birthday parties, the gatherings, I now look back and realize I was spending time with local convenience and liquor store owners for years of my life. And so, yes, it was his full-time job is owning and operating liquor and convenience stores. He did basketball coaching on the side. That's where our relationship kind of got built up. And he had a dream and a vision of sort of helping convenience stores. And it seemed like this unique, not a normal co-founder fit, really, right? You don't typically see that dynamic. but it made sense, and it gave us sort of like the unique perspective of the customer in the industry. And then hopefully I brought good operational expertise and technology experience.
Can you tell what his aha moment was when he, or what was really missing as an owner operator that Bevs kind of solves?
Yeah, so in the early days, the initial challenge was, think 2019 going into 2020, e-commerce was kind of the hot topic for these stores. Most other industries were already quite there, but if you think back then, you couldn't really order local convenience store items on their websites or on any of the delivery apps. And that's how it initially started. He tried to use some of those. It was really hard. And you're thinking a savvier retailer is really struggling, like everyone else is going to be struggling even more. So we go to market in January 2020 with, at the time, what was a alcohol delivery marketplace, basically like DoorDash, but for liquor and convenience stores, or anyone who knows Drizzly, very similar. But our angle was to build something really custom and better for the convenience store to sort of be able to do that. And that was really sort of the trigger. Things changed really fast, and I'm happy to share obviously what we're doing today and how that pivoted. But obviously, a global pandemic changed everything. It changed the way these stores thought about e-commerce. And so we ended up pivoting the company and really doubling down on helping the stores. But the initial product was a marketplace to buy convenience store items from your local convenience store. The new Bevs, after quite a journey, pivoted into a software platform helping the convenience stores manage their business, and that's what we're doing today.
And what does that entail?
Yep. So it's kind of a two-pronged process. What we're really focused on is helping these convenience stores stock the products that their customers want and then easily sell those products in store and online. And so, like, what does that mean exactly? It is a tool for literally buying inventory. That's in the earlier stages today. So we're not completely there yet by any means, but it is a tool where you are a
That's a
convenience store owner
major.
and
That's a
yeah,
major application right there.
right? And it involves, we are not buying and selling the alcohol or the snacks, right? So I cannot sell it directly. Obviously, we're trying to facilitate the transaction for these stores to buy the inventory that they need. The biggest gap was the tracking, right? These stores have 5 to 10,000 unique SKUs. They're getting hundreds of cases of inventory dropped off at the store on a weekly basis. Like, there's no mechanism for any store to efficiently or effectively track what they have, right? So most of these sources don't really know what they have in stock. They scan it as it leaves, but they don't actually keep track of it. So step one was, we wanted to be able,
Yeah,
they have
they don't
no
scan it
idea.
as it comes in the store, so they don't have
No,
any idea what. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I think that happens in other industries as well. I know it does for
totally.
my past with wine.
Oh
The
yeah.
distributors dropping off wines, they don't necessarily have the time, or the
Yep.
means, or it's not necessary to take the time to do that. I mean, it has to be
Yeah.
that's a whole mind shift change.
Yes, it's a mind shift change, and there's been more and more items coming out. So you think like 40 years ago when Victor opened up his first store, you didn't have hundreds, thousands maybe of beer choices, right? You didn't have beer and IPAs and hazy IPAs. It's just obnoxious now. And historically, there weren't e-commerce either. So like, people would come into the store, you buy one beer or the other, whatever. Of course, the brands and the distributors care if you buy their item versus another, but for the store,
Yeah.
it wasn't that much of a problem. Now you go into now, which is, e-commerce is really popular. And if you're a convenience store and you don't track what you have, how can you possibly sell online? You can put items online, but then when do they go out? When do they switch? What new items come in? We're by no means there yet in completely solving the problem, but buying the inventory is piece one. Connecting to their point of sale system, what they're selling in store, is piece two. And then piece three is integrating with all of their e-commerce and delivery apps. How they sell online is piece three. And so, like, simply put, if you know what they buy and what they sell, we can start to automate things. You should never run out of items that you don't want to run out of. You can start to track trends, like, hey, I really thought hard seltzers are doing super well in my store, but actually, when I looked at the data, it's only doing well online and not so much in store, things like that. So we still have a long ways to go, but our wedge into this, right? We started off in e-commerce. That was the initial. We built our own app. We realized they didn't need another app. They needed a better way to manage and use the pre-existing apps. And that's sort of our core value prop today. You're a convenience store. You can manage all your inventory in one place. We preload any inventory you would ever sell. So we have normalized data across name, description, photo, and UPC code for literally anything you'd sell. You use that and you sell across the delivery apps like DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, etc. But the long term is sort of what I just painted, which is we want to facilitate a better way for these stores to manage, and I don't think it is their fault. The industry has changed really fast. There's way too many items, and so they just need the tools and technology talking to each other. That's not there yet. So, but we're working on it.
Yeah, that's a major undertaking. And are you working with just small independent operators at the moment?
Yeah, so what we found is, yeah, and there's other competition that has sort of looked at the chains. One is obviously we have a soft spot for the independents. That's
Mm-hmm.
Victor's an independent store owner, the people we talk to. Also, the metric surprise people, which is 71% of the entire market is independently operated in small chains. So even though people may feel like they see 7-Elevens all the time or like Circle K's, actually dominated by the independently operated and small chains. And so, yes, right now, all our stores are independent liquor and convenience stores and small chains. I think long term, there's absolutely a play to offer value to the bigger chains. But today, those they have some form of in-house solutions. We found they're still not extremely effective, but today the short answer is yes, we target the independents.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So you can actually build the software right, and then once you get a real off the shelf solution, you can go to the bigger guys. But I know you started out e-commerce, but does this kind of connect? Is it sort of like an open source technology platform where you can connect into their accounting software to literally infiltrate kind of their entire environment on the technology side, and you just sort of bring it all together?
Yeah, so that is the end goal, which is becoming the entire like operating system for the store. Everything from payroll, accounting, bookkeeping, compliance, security, phone and internet, you name it. For now, as a startup, we've learned our lessons the hard way of having shiny object syndrome. I'm not saying we won't do any of those things super soon, but for now, we're trying to stay focused on that core. Like the core business of a convenience store is the items they buy and sell. So we're really trying to focus on facilitating that. Longer term, yes, we anticipate we'll add in all these other layers, and the more things that talk to each other, the more that's automated, a owner will be able to really run the store quite easily. And we think it will help the whole industry, because if you're a brand, small or big, if you're a distributor, small or big, it is a big gap that they know what they sell to the store. They have no idea what happens after that, right? When it sells out, what it's selling with, what competition looks like. And so we believe
Price.
that if we do this right, the store gets to run super efficiently with all these things connected. Like taxes at the end of the year should be like a piece of cake because it's all connected to each other. But the brands also stop wasting their time and focus on areas where it really kind of moves the needle, we believe.
Yeah, that's great. I saw your focus right now is the convenience stores and the wholesalers, right? And then brands are kind of
Yeah.
coming on later after you kind of get this piece figured out.
Exactly. Yeah, and we've done some interesting stuff with brands, right? Because what would happen is we start getting known as this company working with a bunch of independent liquor and convenience stores. And so we've had a bunch of brands reach out to us that are like, it's really hard to get to those stores. If you're a big brand, you found a way, but you don't have like an intimate like relationship with them. And if you're a small brand, you have no good way to do it. And so
Yeah.
we have over the years done these sort of like brand marketing and consulting deals where we do have all these stores. We do communicate with them. We found when we communicate with the stores directly through the platform, it's a 91% open rate. So like the stores are paying attention to what we're telling them. That's a scary line. Like I don't want to send them 100 advertisements a month or something, but we have partnered with a few really cool brands that we felt could move the needle in their store to sort of promote. So we have done some brand work, but the core focus today is inventory management, e-commerce aggregation, and starting to get into the distributors, the inventory ordering, and then eventually sort of the brand connection to all of it. But as you know, it's a tricky industry with the 3-tier system.
So, how are you trying to track inventory then? Are you having the store do an inventory check like once a month and just add in what they have on shelf, or what's the starting point there? Because that's really hard.
It's hard. Yeah, so what we do today is you're a store, you want to start selling online, and we give you the platform. The first step is at least we've preloaded all of it. So at least it's there and available. The second step, we call it the Bevs list. So if you're a liquor store or a convenience store with beer and wine, but no liquor, we give you a preloaded list that's like a few hundred items that you almost for sure are selling. And then the stores very quickly either go, I don't have a few of these, or I have a few more, and then they're getting going. So step two is fairly easy. They're online. Step three, to your question, is really the hard part, right? So they're going, I have just so much inventory. It is on them today because the systems aren't talking to each other. The Bevs platform is not that end state we want it to be. And so they literally have to, yeah, sort of say, I want to sell an additional 400 items and I'm going to turn them on. And then I have to pay attention when I turn them off. It's less of like they're keeping track of their e-commerce inventory on a weekly or a monthly basis. It's just too much. They're basically choosing what do they want to sell, what do they keep in stock most of,
Yeah.
until we get to the end game of once we know you don't have to do anything and they'll do it for you. But still way better than what they were doing before, right?
Yeah,
Before,
anything is better,
imagine a
right?
store, yeah,
Yeah.
trying to just figure it out all on their own, upload their own inventory. It was a mess. So we've made a good stride, but yeah, it's not totally there yet.
Has there been any discussion, having the convenience operators, convenience and liquor store operators actually have a conversation with the distributors and ask them to start scanning in? And if they did that, would you use the SCC code on the box?
Yeah, so there's been a lot. The what we're finding, it's going in the opposite direction. So historically, the distributors have really babied the liquor and convenience stores in that they will come literally like I tell this story a lot because I got to watch it with my own eyes several
Hmm.
times where Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors would literally the distributors would come in, they'd put us this is weekly, I saw this, would put a snow jacket on, walk into the walk-in fridge, count the items one by one. It would take like 40 minutes. These are sales professionals, right? And they have to spend so much time counting. And then the last 5 minutes is like actually selling, right? And so we're seeing that go in the reverse. We're seeing distributors now talk about sending less humans over there, doing less work and putting more of the onus on the store. So it has been talked about of saying like, hey, store, you scan it. The other problem, so problem one is where I think it's going in the other direction, where distributors are starting to go, like it's not on us to manage the store for you. I get it. You have way too many items, but we're not going to scan it. Like if you want to put it in your POS, scan it. The second, and then which code they scan, all unique. The second is what's scanning it. Every store has different POS systems, so there's no unified sort of program. So some POS systems could scan a certain code and it could work. Some could scan it and it definitely won't work. I'd argue most of the ones you can't just scan it, right?
Uh,
Because we're building a lot of this software today. Like they need a unified piece. So in a future state, maybe there's a teamwork effort here where Bevs has a integrated software platform with the correct scanning and then normalizing and matching the data. It's so complicated. And we recruited a CTO that had sort of deep experience in this space, specifically wine, because wine's like literally the hardest with all the vintages and lack
yes.
of UPC codes. But yeah, it hasn't happened before, and it seems like it's going in the opposite direction. So we need, I believe, something like Bevs or a tool that can help the stores start to do this, which they don't have today, obviously.
Well, when you think about post COVID, and the workforce, and the distributors have more competition, so they have less percentage of ownership or percentage of sales in the in volume in the stores, and they can't keep people because it's kind of a revolving
Yeah,
door
it's a
situation. And
rush.
so it's not maybe necessarily their fault. I mean, their business model is changing too. So somebody has to pick up where they left off, and I mean, technology is certainly the answer, right? But how does that
Yeah,
technology get plugged in is what you guys are solving, which is really great, because I just can't even imagine trying to run a convenience store with thousands and thousands of SKUs and items, and not knowing all the information. That would be, I mean, that's a gray area they're used to, I'm sure. But, as an analyst, that would be very difficult.
crazy for them, crazy for us, crazy for the distributors, crazy for the suppliers. And I don't know if we'll be the answer, but I like the innovation we're starting to see in the space. I think it was one long time coming. Two, it was pandemic forced a lot of this stuff, and there's some trickiness, right? I think the suppliers and distributors, especially, like, are not used to technology in this way. They're starting to get there, right? You have your Southerns building SG Proof and
Hmm.
Anheuser-Busch with bees, and so it's starting to come together. But like the trust and the data sharing, it gets really, really tricky, and so that's how we had to find our wedge, which was to your original question, which is like, how are they even getting this inventory on the delivery apps today? And it's like, not in a perfect way, but in a just good enough way to get us in the door and start to be able to have these conversations. And I like to believe there's enough money and opportunity that like we can all win. Cause like in the end, like if let's just like sort of fast forward 10 years or maybe five, I don't know, hopefully five, that we know what's in these convenience stores. Consumers are happy because then anything you want to buy, you can find it at the closest local store. The stores are pretty happy because they're never running out of stuff that their customers want. They spend significantly less time managing it, and they're starting to get kind of more specific items in their store that meet their customers' needs. The distributors don't have to physically send humans, hopefully as often at least, and focus more on sales, not on counting, right?
Hmm.
And the brands start to really get a feel for what works, where it works, how it works. I think what I'm most excited about, honestly, in that whole scenario, and even though we are a retailer software platform, I'm really excited to give also, I think smaller brands will start to have, I wouldn't say an edge, but like an opportunity. It's so hard to start like a new CPG brand because how can you compete when a distributor goes and counts the items every week?
Yeah.
You can't beat that. So I'm excited about the opportunity.
How did you get started, or where are you at now? Do you have like a handful of stores that you beta test for certain releases, or is it just sort of, okay, everybody, here we go? Like, how
Yeah.
does that work?
It, Yeah, it's a kind of multifaceted. Today, yeah, what we would do is a few. One, we have what's called QA. It's a quality assurance engineer. So we've built these sort of um, locations in our software platform that we can run a ton of tests and sort of make sure it
Nice.
works. That's phase one. Frankly, in the early days of Bevs, I think we hired our first QA engineer. Probably not even a full year ago. So there were times where it was just like, yeah, we're gonna put it in a store and we hope it doesn't break that store because we didn't have the QA. So now we have QA. Phase
Oh, that's
two,
great.
we typically test in Victor's stores. So he still has two stores. Our test setter. We go to the store, we test, we make sure it all works, and then phase three, we push it out all live. We also do have some interesting ways we build the code where we can reel it back in really fast because you can never get it perfect. But we like to believe between QA, testing in a pilot store, and then going live, that usually we're in pretty good shape by the time it hits everybody.
That's a great idea. I like the QA. That makes total sense. So, how many states are you in now?
Yeah, we're now in 16 states. So
Okay, that's a lot.
we're in a fair amount across the U.S. We were California focused for a time, but yeah, we're
Right.
really hitting sort of the broader U.S. much more quickly now.
How do you know if they're independently operated? Because I'm assuming some of them are franchisees, right?
It is a tricky sort of scenario. So probably one of our toughest challenges in acquiring convenience stores is there's not a lot of self-identification online on who they are, what stores they own. We're basically be able to pull based on license, like all the lists of stores. So we get all these stores, we get phone numbers. We kind of find out when we talk to them. So we might talk to a store and they're like, I'm a franchisee of a Circle K. And we're like, okay, it's probably not a fit for right now. We've actually had a fair amount of franchisees of larger brands like that reach out to us, and we're just not, we feel like ready to target those. But sort of short answer is no, we get these lists, we find out when we talk to them in that first call, and then we navigate the call based on that. And we also do physical visits, right? So when we physically go visit the store, of course we know, or we get a better idea if it's like a JoJo's Liquor or something versus obviously we're not walking into 7-Elevens. But even then, behind the scenes, like the biggest store chain we ever got was 21 or like 21 store chain. And we didn't know, we thought it was a single owner. We went in, it looked like a single owner, and he was part of this larger group and owned 21 stores. And so you don't know if you're talking
Wow.
to a single owner or if you're talking to 21 or who knows, 30 or whatever. So it's fun times.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the fun of it too, right? You learn. I'm sure you're learning so much all the time. Uh, because I bet, obviously different states have different needs. I mean, the basic human needs are there, but
Yeah.
different regions and different, habits and food items. I mean, just driving from Texas to Florida back and forth, we see it in
Oh yeah.
different states. There's just different items. Pork rinds just aren't everywhere.
No, they're
Oil
not the most
peanuts just
popular.
aren't everywhere.
No, it's crazy. So no, 100%. So we keep adding to this library all the time because we're trying to pull from various databases, make sure it's all sort of integrated, connected. Because yeah, what one location is selling is different. Of course, like Bud Light's probably in pretty much every liquor store, but there are a lot of items that are not. And so initially, the early days of Bevs was like, let's not go everywhere because we're not probably prepared for what that entails. And now we're a bigger team, we're growing faster, so we're targeting most states. I think the ones we're purposely not targeting yet are states that don't allow for alcohol delivery, just because that is still kind of the key value prop. Like if the store can't make more money selling online, our system doesn't add nearly the value that it would if they could. So we're not hitting your Arkansas, your Utahs just yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of states I think that don't do that. Well, I don't know anymore because Drizzly kind of changed all that, and now you have a
In the
lot of
pandemic,
alcohol delivery. Yeah,
yeah,
Texas
after the
has it,
pandemic, Texas has it,
Florida
Florida.
can. Yeah,
Yeah, most states now, it's a majority of US states offer it. There's some tricky ones. So, like Colorado is an interesting example. They allow it, but not through third-party delivery apps. So you could order from the store, but the store has to have a delivery driver to do it. So, like, that's not a great fit because if the store doesn't have a delivery driver, but a majority of US states. So we're still targeting, when you think about it, like still around 40 of the 50 are still like good targets for us. And we're still early. So like 40 of 50 US states is plenty of market opportunity for us as we're growing, but it'll be interesting to see how the laws change. It seems like it's going in that way. Like at this point, what some people argue it's safer, right? So you go like, would you rather someone who has had too many drinks go drive and go get more, or would it be safer to allow them to order? You could also go the other end and go like, if they can't get more drinks, like it's probably better that they get none. But you're given your takes. I think at this point, like it's going to go national. We're seeing, and in the end, like we've said, it's not the only value we're offering. Just in the early
right.
stages of the company, it's the key value prop.
Okay, it's a kind of a selling point too, I suppose.
Yeah, make more
Uh,
money.
to the stores. Yeah,
Yeah,
make more
it's a
money.
good selling point.
Yeah. But I mean, for Texas, yes, you can deliver, but convenience stores can't have liquor in them. I don't know. I haven't seen liquor in Florida either, but I know that you can get it delivered. Um, so I don't know. That's just, the laws are difficult to follow state by state, and a real challenge to keep up, and like you said, they keep changing
Yeah,
because it's the right thing to do.
yeah. I think the way we see it, you should let the stores sort of run their business in the best way that they can. And so, even like today, an example, I'm not sitting here to promote tobacco by any means, but the delivery apps and things don't allow for tobacco sales. That's fine. Our stance is we're not promoting or not promoting, but like ultimately, the store, we just want to enable the store to sell anything that they sell in the store online so that they can make the most money. Especially for us, these are independently operated small business owners, a lot first generation. Like these are groups that have been overlooked consistently. So what we're trying
Yeah.
to facilitate is, okay, we'll try and understand the laws across all these states. We'll give you a tool that makes it really easy to engage with those. And so it will get tricky when we're in like 40, 50 states. We'll probably have a team monitoring laws changes. Maybe at some point we're helping lobbying. But like I said, it all comes back to the core value prop of, if you're a store, we just want to help you run it more efficiently and make more money selling your products for what customers want.
You know who have a lot of lawyers? Are suppliers. You
Yep.
could probably lean on them if you build relationships with them. They could help you
Really good point.
navigate a lot of that, whether it be tobacco or or
Alcohol, everything.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's super
yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I mean,
C-
like I said, if this all goes as we plan, we're all friends, right? It's like everyone's winning because the right items are ending up in the right stores at the right time and everyone's happy. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't hopefully have to have our own a huge legal department in every state. That would be expensive for a startup.
Wow, so that's super exciting, Jason. Have you worked in the business before, the wine and spirits business, the tobacco, any of the items that were in any of these stores?
Nope. So I was in tech my whole career pretty much. Ironically, I worked at the alcohol and drug program in college, which is like the reverse of this. Um, so no, I have not been in the space, and so that was the biggest challenge and sort of my priority the moment I started working on Bevs, right? It was, I know tech. I'm pretty good at operations and finance. I did end up getting my MBA while we were building Bevs. I did it on the side, so I had those pieces, but the industry was a big gap for me, and so I spent, I mean, thousands of hours picking Victor's brain, asking questions, understanding the industry, understanding the nuances. I still have more to grow there for sure, but no, I did not have experience in this space when I started.
Yeah, and that's a huge learning curve too. I mean, there's laws, there's different restrictions, there in each state is different, and
Oh yeah,
um just kind of understanding all of it. It's pretty overwhelming. And they're
yeah,
very the beer, wine and spirits space is very different.
yeah. They're all
So
different.
it's kind of learning. Yeah, learning. I mean, you got snacks, you got snacks, you got gum, you got gum.
Yeah.
But the wine, beer, and spirits is slightly different.
Oh,
Wine and beer are kind of
100%.
more the same versus the liquor. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's a long time, and we're still learning every day, right?
yeah. So there's new
It's
stuff for everyone, and then I had to catch up with
Yeah,
everyone, and
always.
so um,
RTDs came
yeah.
along and
Oh my God, yeah. The seltzer is like it's crazy to think.
CBD.
Yeah, CBD's coming along, and now the delivery apps too have finally allowed for a small amount of CBD to go in the apps for the first time. And so, like,
Nice.
things are, and we're trying to be ahead of these. So it's like, hey, store, you should start maybe getting more CBD. You may not know, but we know, like, the delivery apps are going to start letting you sell like in the next 6 months or something like that. So now the industry is changing all the time. So I'm learning all the time. And then catching up and all of that. But now, yeah, I mean, we've been working on it since the 1st of January 2020. So we're going on, multiple years. So hopefully I've
Yeah.
learned at least a few things by now.
Have you ever thought about connecting to brand platforms? Because what they have out there is, I'll give one name that I can remember, Salsify. So a lot of my customers use that. And, your brand teams change the label and it changes it
Oh yeah,
across the board.
yeah,
And you have all the right information, up to date. Is that feasible for you guys to even look at that as an option? Because that with thousands of items, snacks and all
yeah.
that other stuff, I don't know.
100%. So we're not currently integrated with Salsify, but what you said is exactly what we're doing with like 8 other companies. We also do it with the delivery apps. We share data with each other. So as anyone updates anything, we're trying to normalize it. Yeah, that's the
Nice.
exact point. It's just like it can't be on us to update every label, every description, everything.
Mm-mm.
It can't. And so in a perfect world, frankly, no, Salsify has a nice chunk. It's not, there's so many stuff, so many things in the convenience stores, but yeah, in an ideal world, everyone's using like a Salsify and then we all integrate with Salsify and then everyone's good. Since that hasn't been possible to date, we've found our way through a bunch of other integrations. And so we're in a pretty good position because we're taking all these different sites, pulling them in, sharing back and forth. But it's like I think it's going to be the endless journey, right? Like this specific problem,
Yeah.
I think will never be fully solved, but we'll hopefully get close.
You'd think that the federal government, and I don't know what it's like for snacks. Maybe they don't need to go through the federal government to get a UPC, but you'd think there'd just be a massive database of this information somewhere that you could tap into.
Yeah,
I don't know what
it,
that looks like or what that would
yeah.
be, but
No, I mean
wouldn't
it's
that
one
be
of those
nice?
things where you look back and go, if someone sort of had any purview into what was coming, like everyone would be happier if we all sort of stuck to some sort of rules and regulations. And now we're just so far along to start getting everyone to change things, I think is going to be really tricky. And so maybe that'll happen. Maybe it's a combo, but all I'm as a technologist, we're going, okay, for us to sort of lobby change the way like everyone's labeling, that's going to be tough. Let's do our best to sort of build really interesting technology, these engines that can take in, especially with like artificial intelligence now, it's like we can take in ridiculous amounts
Yeah.
of data, scrape it, and like in a millisecond be like, these 42 don't match. What are you going to do about it? So we're going in that direction, but hopefully it's a
Nice.
combo. Hopefully it's a combo, tech and regulation. That's where it's the best.
Yeah, that is cool. I made it a point to try to put an hour each week to dig into AI because I just haven't taken the time, and I've lost a year. But it's interesting. I've seen where you can AI yourself. Like
Yeah,
you can create videos and not even be doing
it's
it. Your
crazy.
AI self can do that. And I'm like, why? That would be really fun to
Yeah, no, it's
to
I feel
create
very
more
behind.
content.
Feel very behind in AI. It's like it's obviously not the core priority of my job leading Bevs right now. And but I'm gonna look back and be like, I didn't spend any time to really get to know the tools and the skills. But like, yeah, we've seen some really cool stuff. We found an opportunity that you could sort of get an AI tool. It would change the language for you. So a lot of our customers are speaking. They all speak English for the most part, but many it's not their first language. And it'd be like, how cool would it be if we could send a marketing or promotional video that looks like a real human that speaks to them in their own language? And so we haven't really cracked the code on that yet, but I think there's going to be some really cool opportunities or like how to answer questions or how to like make the tool much better. But there's two parts of AI, right? Which is one part being is the data flow into it. And so we're hoping as we start to track and facilitate more of the data for the store, like we'll have enough to like even build our own AI tools, which would be interesting, but still a ways
Yeah.
away.
Well, you can program your own AI now.
Yeah.
I've seen it a few different ways, and but if you can and you can do that, that would certainly be something you could market.
Oh yeah. And so we're seeing, but all in good time. Tech's changing
Yeah,
fast. We're just trying to keep up.
yeah. I think you have time. I mean, AI is not going anywhere, and it's going to
No.
evolve. You can't no, not everybody is not going to create everything all at once.
No.
It'll be a
No.
process.
Yeah, especially
It'll
for
be a
niche
process.
industries, right? I think the
Yeah,
benefit we're getting now is it's been this specific space has been overlooked for a long time. There's more stuff coming out, but it's not like the restaurant space. Like there are hundreds of restaurant technology companies. There's not a lot. So AI tools will be built, but
so much.
these that's how we sort of exist, right? It wasn't that no one's ever figured out inventory management or e-commerce aggregation or inventory ordering. We're not creating revolutionary concepts. They've just never been customized in the required way for these stores to really get benefit from it. And so, uh, with the right data, with the right technology, I don't think I would be shocked if in 5 years we talked and we're like, so many AI tools came out for liquor stores and convenience stores. There's just dozens of them. It would really surprise me.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Bevs that we haven't touched upon?
No, I mean, I think we talked about a lot of really good stuff around what we used to do, what we do today, and where we're going. I think the industry is changing in a really cool way. I would just say, like, holistically, what I hope to see, not just from Bevs, but from a lot of companies, is these deeper customizations and these sort of extra clicks down. Like, we call it vertical software, right? It's like, in it, even a layer into that, which is like, I really think these SMB customers, especially these independently operated businesses, not just convenience stores, but anything retail, clothing, etc. Like the new custom technology to help them run their businesses will come, especially with AI tools. I hope to see a lot more of it. So I'm pretty hyped on vertical software in and of itself, not just in our space. Um, and so I think it's an exciting time to be in alcohol, snack and drinks, and in technology. So I'm having a good time, and we're going to try and just help as many stores as we can, add as many stores as we can, keep as many stores as we can, and keep building really cool tech. Uh,
Yeah,
and
I
yeah,
love
that's
it.
the name of the
You're in the
game.
right spot.
We're there.
Yay, I love that. Awesome. Well, that was a really cool breakdown of the business, and I really appreciate that. It hopefully gives people a lot of clarity. And for as for brands, in terms of how to connect with you, it'd be more under on the backside of things versus anything else at the moment. But
Yeah.
you have a lot of room to grow, so it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm I'm, I'm excited to follow your progress.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the last thing I'd say is, yeah, if you're a brand or a distributor or a retailer, probably not a customer, but if you're a brand, a distributor, or a retailer, reach out to me. I don't know if we have the technology or tools that make it a perfect fit, but I think in the direction we're going, uh, I would love to chat and see if we can help each other in any ways. But what we can promise is we know convenience stores really well. We're adding thousands, and hopefully we'll all work together in some way, shape, or form now or in the future.
Awesome. I think I just got my commercial.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's good. That was really good, dude. That was awesome. All right. So, where are you originally from, Jason?
So born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Moved a couple times, but back where I started.
Yeah. I mean, home is where the heart is, right?
It
You
is.
love. So, you're from LA. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
you said you left a couple of times, but came back. What part of LA or whereabouts?
Yes, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, specifically like Northridge, Granada Hills area. So, suburby, not like it was fine. I didn't love it. So I was never the biggest LA fan, but I didn't really get the view of LA of what I see it as now because I was just sort of deeper into the valley. And then I went to UC Santa Barbara for college, which is not that far away, but obviously like a way different vibe and experience. And then I did live in Seattle for a couple of years, and it seemed like my close friends, family, all ended up kind of back in the LA area. I didn't get into UCLA for undergrad, and so I always wanted to go to UCLA, sort of being growing up in LA. And so when I was looking to get my
Yeah.
MBA, I was like, if I can get into UCLA now, like that's maybe cooler or less cool depending on who's looking at it, but I want to do it. And so I got in, and then moved back to LA. And I'm still technically in the San Fernando Valley for any LA listeners. I'm in Studio City now, but it's on like the outskirts. We like to consider ourselves like valley adjacent, but I'm close to Hollywood, and I work out of Santa Monica fairly frequently. And so back in LA, and really liking this, how cool, diverse. There's a lot more technology in LA than there used to be. So I've grown to appreciate LA when I didn't like it growing up here that much.
It's awesome. I like that. It's kind of come full circle.
Yeah, we're all here. And now, literally, so my brother lived in Studio City, and I visited him when I was in Seattle, and I'm like, this is cool. It's like LA, more LA than where we grew up, but still pretty quiet, a little cheaper to live. So then I fell in love with it. I move out here, and then he goes to move, and we end up not purposely a half mile apart. So I'm like a mile away from my brother. He has a
Oh, that's
baby,
awesome.
so I'm an uncle. And then what do you think happens when first baby comes? The grandparents flock. So then my parents move, same thing. They're looking anywhere. Like it could be, 5, 10, 15 miles away, end up 1 mile away. So now literally we are all off of Moore Park Street, half mile from my brother, a mile and a half basically to my parents. So our family is very, very close by now.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've got the Bermuda Triangle going on.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing all right. Saves me a lot of time in startup life. I get to see my family more often and only drive
Yeah.
half mile to 1.5 miles. So I'm happy about it. Nice win for me.
Yeah, that is nice. How did you get into the tech world? How did you
Yeah.
what was your big jump into it?
Yeah. I mean, I was always curious about it. So in college, I worked for a couple different sort of programs or internships. One of them was a nonprofit called Dance Marathon. It raised money for Children's Miracle Network. And it was just getting launched. It's almost like the same story as Bevs. I wasn't like the founder of it, but I joined right when it was starting. And then I ended up being the president of it because it was just a mess, and as startups are. And then I worked for the alcohol and drug program and a couple other sort of local companies. And I always ended up being really intrigued by technology and websites and e-commerce. And so I found myself doing a lot of like web development type tasks. Around the time I was doing this is when the tools like Squarespace and Wix and stuff came out, because I wasn't hyper interested in coding by any means, but I liked creating sort of these web interfaces. I liked design. And so I did a lot of that. So in college, I was building a lot of websites. I did a little bit on the side. So it was also like the first time I sort of like made money, like doing something like this, right? Where I'd done jobs and I got paid to work at a company, but actually on my own, sort of marketing myself. And so that's really where it started, like building these web interfaces and like seeing e-commerce happen and actually getting paid to do it was really exciting to me. And then in Santa Barbara, at least, the biggest, like, Santa Barbara's not very big. There weren't like a ton of companies out there. The clear biggest, coolest tech company was called Citrix. They own like GoToMeeting and all these sort of things like that. And it was like, I don't know, maybe 2,000 people, multiple buildings, basketball court, gym, like that, like big tech sort of view you hear about in Silicon Valley. There was one in Santa Barbara, and that's where I ended up working. And so that was sort of the trigger. And they were deeply technical, kind of like the alcohol industry. It was so intensely technical, the Citrix platform, that I like had no idea what I was doing or what it was. I was in a marketing role, so it was okay. I didn't have to be an engineer, but it was also a really cool challenge for me. So I think that was also a trigger for me, which was like really understanding deep levels of technology in a way I had no idea even existed, sort of was the trigger.
So did you stay in marketing tech on the tech side?
Yeah, so I jumped around a bit. And so what's funny is my first job at Citrix, it was called marketing and communications intern. So I interned. I didn't realize it said HR marketing and communications intern. So actually, my very first job was in HR doing marketing and communications to employees about internal things because it was 10,000 employees in 44 countries. So it was a pretty big company, right? So I started in HR, but marketing and communications was sort of my skill set. And then I jumped around. So I was in HR, I was in marketing, I was in operations. The long story short path was I ended up in my last role at Citrix, I was head of global employee communications and engagement, which is a mouthful of a tech company title. But what I was really doing was kind of a mix of those, right? I worked across three departments: HR, marketing, and business operations, really doing project management, strategy, and still communications. I sat on the extended HR leadership team. I think that was a really cool experience for me because I think
Yeah.
today as a leader, I'm super people focused. I think maybe more than average because I sat on an HR leadership team for so long. And so kind of a mix of those three: marketing, HR, business operations.
Well, I mean, it's pretty rare, at least in my experience, or in my head, I guess, that someone with such deep HR experience would ever want to be a CEO because they're concerned about people. And but you had more of a
Right.
strategy role within HR, which I think is really interesting. Also, and I think a lot of companies aren't that forward thinking to include HR on strategy and the people and structure and what to look for in the future and all that. So that's a very cool experience. It must have been kind of cutting edge because I don't think it happens very often.
Yeah, no, I had it. It's funny. I met an advisor and I guess they looked at my LinkedIn, and my like college degree is communications and psychology. And they're like, I don't think I've ever met a CEO of a tech company that was like a communications and psychology background. And I think to your point, I guess we'll see how Bevs continues to go. But to me, it's like, especially as we're scaling up, these hires are so critical. We're too small.
So
So like
important.
every
Hmm.
hire we're making or every person we bring in, and everyone does talk about that side when they talk about especially like startups or even technology startups. It's like I'm not doing all the work. If I was, then I wouldn't care that much about the team if I was just an individual sort of like doing consulting.
Right.
But like they're the ones doing all the work. And so we've been, I think, pretty forward thinking about people comp, like key best people is this whole set of steps that's like, yeah, money matters, but most people are driven more by sort of career and personal growth. And how do we like ensure that especially our younger talent or our diverse talent has these steps to feel like they're at the right place getting there. And then we actually, after I obviously sort of was more focused on this, we just hired our first director of people and culture. And so we're really sort of doubling down on that. And hoping that, yeah, you find and
Great
retain
idea.
amazing people. I think we're going to figure it out.
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to our roundtable. I release a full podcast like this every week, and then have a special one.
Yeah.
This week is our first live happy hour, but the first one I started with a roundtable because it was so important to start the year with advice. I thought from people that live in this world and help brands and like yours every day. So I had Taylor, I had
Yeah.
Brian, I had Ben Salisbury, and Gary, and so and Matt, and so these guys they live on all parts of the all parts of the world, right? Of this world,
Yeah.
and so they all had such great advice. But one of the big topics we talked about was making sure you hire the right people, because it's extremely important when you're a young company like this to get the right people that have the same vision, that
Yeah.
want to grow, like you said, and as the company grows. So yeah, that's really interesting, and very important part of being a startup.
The people side's everything. I mean, obviously you still have to have like good operational plan. We saw obviously have to track finances. Like there's a ton of key parts, but yeah, the people side I feel like is overlooked too often, especially in tech. Like there's this history of technology companies like raising a bunch of money, just scaling insanely fast, and now that sort of is changing, where it's capital efficiency is sort of this hot topic in technology startups. And so you can't be capital efficient if you keep hiring the wrong people, overpaying them, letting them go, et cetera. So uh, no, it's fun times, and it's my favorite part, which makes it challenging when there are, the hard parts of running a company, and we're not going to get the right people every single time, and people change, or the company changes, right? The right person could be the right
Yeah.
person today that isn't 2 years from now. So that part gets hard, but I think we're doing a pretty good job overall trying to build a fun, enjoyable, but really like hardworking, meaningful culture. And it's like a living, breathing thing. So we're working on it.
Yes, culture is very important. Are you all virtual?
It's like a 50-50. So the leadership team is in LA for the most part. Now that we're growing, we have one person in Seattle, one in Arizona who are on the leadership team, but the rest of the leadership team is based in LA, even though in LA, like that doesn't always mean a perfect thing because some people have to drive further to meet. And outside of that, we're all virtual. We build our software in the Philippines, and then we have a lot of sales reps in their respective states, and we're definitely a remote virtual company. We actually are bringing out every US employee and a couple of our Philippines employees and our Canada employee at the end of the month. So in January, we decided to budget for at least once a year to get as many people as we can together in person. And so, yeah, I mean, like, what's really obviously it'll be the first time me meeting a few of these people in person. But what's crazier is we
Yeah.
brought good talent on. They brought talent that they've worked with before that are really good. And we found out that some of those relationships they've never met in person. So like our head of sales is like, I've never even like met a min. And I'm like, what? You recruited him? You worked with him before? It's been like how many years? Like 5 years of working together. So we're gonna have some like these like culminating moments where people have worked together for 5 years and never met in person. So, but short answer, we're a remote company, but trying to do some hybrid.
Yeah, I think it's good to do hybrid if you can, just to get that kind of brainstorming. It's a little bit easier to brainstorm, I think, when you're together, in a sense.
Totally.
That's good.
Totally.
Yeah. So, are there any mentors that you want to mention that have kind of helped facilitate your growth in any of your ventures?
Oh yeah, too many. So I mean, like the early days in college, my manager at the alcohol and drug program, Jeannie, was very impactful in my growth. That I mean, like think of the person mentoring you from high school into sort of college going into professional career. That's a big gap. I mean, I was
Yeah.
hardworking in high school, but I wasn't a professional by any means. And I feel like that was the turning point to get me to a professional level really fast. My first manager at Citrix, Liz, was insanely impactful because then that was the next, I think, huge step in my career, which was like a professional at like a college internship is so different than going into like a corporate professional. And we're still friends and remain close. And then over the years, really it's been a handful of different mentors. My dad and brother are have been mentors also, right? They're really hardworking. My dad's a business owner. And as I've sort of scaled up, I've found the right advisors and mentors at Bevs. And so we've done multiple accelerators. I think we've actually done 4 accelerators. I probably wouldn't recommend 4 accelerators. It's probably too many, but we met really good people and advisors. And so, yeah, I mean, the list is pretty long. Paul came in as a finance advisor in the early days of Bevs. He's now technically like our fractional CFO, and he's been advising me just on people, finance, operations, everything. So a long list, and adding to that list. And now I'm trying to do a little myself, right? So I'm trying to not over rotate, because if I advise like 10 people, I'll probably have no Bevs left or no life, one or the other, or both. But trying to give back a little bit, especially in like the fundraising aspect. It's one of those weird, tricky things. Like tech startup fundraising is like not a core part of the business, but becomes the core part, because if you don't have money, then you can't do anything. And I think I've learned my sort of way with it and trying to help some other founders. But yeah, lots of mentors. I think it's insanely important. I think it's a tricky way. You can't just go pick whatever mentor you want, but as you find the right ones, it's important.
Yeah, 100%. What about any resources?
So many. So it's hard to remember, because I went and got my MBA at UCLA. It was a working program. So I started in fall 2019. I had to take a leave at one point because Bev got really crazy, and so I didn't finish until March of 2023. So during that time frame, obviously the school had me read lots of books. Some were really helpful, some were not. I think in terms of resources, the podcasts I listen to. I mean, I like to have a good idea of what's going on in the tech landscape in general, right? And I found the Pivot podcast. It's Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, I think, do a really good job at just like keeping you up to date on technology trends and information. I used to listen to the Tim Ferriss show a lot. In terms of fundraising, these are all podcasts. Funded, Jason Ye, I think there's not a lot of information on fundraising online or in podcast form. So I found Funded really well. Those are probably, I went on a pitch show, which I don't want to tout as being a phenomenal way to learn about startups and fundraising. But I enjoyed the experience, got good feedback. It's called The Pitch. I think they do a good job at sort of showcasing the journey, and it was legit. I mean, it was like Shark Tank. I went in front of the investors and I
Oh, wow.
pitched them live. It was the most challenging experience I've ever had, because it was like almost
Yeah,
an
that'd be
hour
hard.
and I'm getting grilled, no slides, no notes. Like, you have to know everything. So the pitch, I would say, in terms of books, I don't know. You obviously, as a podcast, you can't see my book wall behind me, but there's definitely a few books. I mean, like 0 to 1's a really good one, Peter Thiel. But there's a lot out there. I'd say the one cool thing now
Yeah.
is online trainings. Yeah, like, I'll be honest, I loved my experience at UCLA. You don't need an MBA to do this. It's just finding the right resources for you. The one last one I will say is the books I actually enjoyed the most, and I think they're the easiest to read, are these stories of other founders and startups. So like Shoe Dog with
Yeah.
Nike, Jeff Bezos and Amazon has a book, the Airbnb founders have a book. There's all these books. I found those really cool because they just dig into their story in depth, and I feel like you can learn a ton about where they made mistakes, and you get this idea. For me, it helped. I'm a very realistic person, and so sometimes I look at startups and I go like, there's just no way. Like, the stats say this is like a 1% chance. Like, why am I even doing this? But then I go through the stories, like the ones I mentioned, and you go like, there were so many times all these companies we recognize as being phenomenal as almost failing. Like, times they were like, he was like selling shoes from a back of a truck. Are you kidding me? And so I think these stories also help just build confidence, where you're like, these aren't super geniuses typically. It's a crazy amount of work. It's a lot of dedication, and it's like almost failing
Vision.
all the time. So anyways, that was a long-winded answer, but I'm a big believer in just constantly learning and growing, and there's so much information out there. So I try and take part in it as much as I can.
Yeah. I no, 100%. I agree. Learning from other people's stories, which is part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast, right? It's to kind of tell people's journey and stories on how do people get where they get,
Yeah,
how does it happen?
totally.
And obviously everybody's different.
Yeah,
Everybody's different,
100%.
which that's just so great. I love that about this podcast. Is there any pain points that you see that are affecting the convenience part that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned a few of them. I mean, the biggest pain point today, which is what we're trying to solve, is that like systems don't talk to each other, right? So like off bat, that's what I think we can solve. So I won't go into that because that's sort of the obvious one, right? I think the next biggest challenge I'm seeing is the quantity of new items and trends. It seems like it's just happening faster and faster. I love the hard seltzer story because like it felt like we blinked our eyes and hard seltzer was a top category in convenience stores when prior to that it was a literally non-existent category, right? It's insane to think that like White
Yep.
Claw and all, there's so many now. So I think that's a big challenge, which is it's it sounds enticing. It's exciting. There's all these new products coming out. You're a convenience store owner. You want to sell what customers want, and you're usually one of the first people to get it because if you're a brand new CPG product, you're typically not just getting into Target off bat, right? Or Walmart or like Total Wine or a big chain. So these stores are sort of on the cusp of deciding what the trends are, and it's impossible. And so I'm not saying data cures it because I do think there is a nuance to running a store, knowing customers personally and sort of figuring that out. But I'd say that's really the biggest challenge I'm seeing is I just think it's going to get even bigger. I think there's categories that you talked about RTD earlier. There's categories that are going to come up that are going to keep blowing up. There are categories that will jump in and die. There are products that will blow up and die. And that is a fascinating whole realm to me on how we sort of get the right products in the right places at the right time because it's not possible to perfect that, but like how do we get close? And we ever hit a stopping point? Like at some point, will there be less brand new items sort of coming to market and we just go back to the sort of the main ones? I don't know. It seems like it's not letting up, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't see it letting up anytime soon. I do think the funding is going to dictate a lot of that on where it goes. I think a lot of people were at home during COVID and created a lot of different things. I mean, I know you've been kind of studying the industry. Our industry is very slow. It
Yeah.
doesn't change. And then all of a sudden it's exploding with all these different categories and all these different things really, really fast. And so I think we're all still trying to catch up to that because we were, at a
Yeah.
snail's pace. I mean, there'd be line extensions and there'd be, you know, this, that, and the other, but the explosion of bourbons, now this
Oh
explosion of
my God.
tequilas,
Yeah.
that's not as new. But then you get all these different categories that are just popping in, and you got to change the mindset of some of these buyers of um, not just buyers but just convenience store owners, anybody that
Oh, yeah.
has to bring in product to open up their shelves and find room for this stuff
Yeah.
because it's selling. And how far do you go, and did you go too far? Do you need to back up? Is it,
Yeah.
it's I think it's going to shake out. I think people are going to continue to try, but if you're not, the key is to be funded, and not everybody's going to get funded.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure out a way to stand out to get that funding. But yeah, I,
Chicken and
I
the
don't
egg,
think,
right?
I think RTDs, what's that?
Chicken and the egg, right? Same with tech, same with the CPGs. It's like
Chicken,
you
yep.
have to stand out to get the funding, but how do you stand out if you don't get funding? And the ones who don't make it, you can be that CPG that gets there with no funding, but it's so much harder.
It's hard. I mean, I have zero desire to even try to do create a product just because it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of work. Starting any business is that, but
Yeah.
it's really difficult and it's just really 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 hard. So I admire people that
Oh yeah.
that want to do it, and it's important that they do to create that
Yeah. We need that innovation.
innovation and to create the exciting things.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
hear
for
you.
sure. So
Starting
I
CBD scares me. There's no way.
respect.
Yeah, I'm like to stand out and to convince people, even if it's a better product, it's like what defines better, like physical items. I mean, we're software, so I'm like, we don't store things. Like we do have some iPad component to our, but I'm like, we don't like have items, I'm like, I commend CPG founders, and I think it's a lot harder than building technology, honestly. Um, but I'm with you there.
Well, if you think about baking or, the gluten-free world, I mean, it's strict, it's difficult, and then you got to have a warehouse and you got to have, it's no different, I guess, than trying to open a restaurant,
Yeah,
you know. That is hard.
yeah,
That is really hard. And then you're there every day,
yeah.
you know.
That's why I like software. I'm gonna stay.
Yeah.
I can be like adjacent to CPG, but I like being in the software. Even though I can't code, I obviously have to surround myself with people that can. But it just seems so much more attainable, and so much less challenging, honestly. But like you said, we're not discouraging the CPG founders. We still need you. They have to
No, we
exist.
need you.
We need the innovation, but I won't be partaking.
Yeah, and that's not our role for the industry,
Yeah,
and that's okay. We're doing other things to help support it.
exactly.
Any outlook on the industry for 2024?
Yeah, I think we've sort of weaved it in the conversation today. One is I do think there's going to be more items. So it's just more items, more customization, more distinction between what customers really want, right? And I think like I mentioned with the beers, it's like we're going to be getting to these places where like a consumer is not okay with just picking up a beer. They're not okay with just picking up an IPA. They're barely okay with just picking up any hazy IPA. It's going to have to be a certain kind. And I think the consumer preference is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, especially with e-commerce, because like the Amazons of the world have allowed that to sort of be. So I think one is more items and more intense consumer preference, I think is one major trend. I think the second, which I think Bevs is directly part of, is vertical software. It's for too long, and I think because technology was more expensive, it was really hard in tech to raise funding as a vertical software because it was deemed not venture backable, right? It was just because it's the point, right? A lot of VCs are looking for $1 billion exits, billion or bust, and they go with vertical software. There's just not enough in that vertical. That's the whole point, right? We got a lot of that feedback early on, which was like, love what you're building, but like, you have to get every convenience store for this to be $1 billion business. And so we found our way to sort of navigate that between data and brands and stores. But I think the trends are changing that technology is cheaper to build every year, and preference, not just for consumer, but for business preference, right? And so I think independents, SMBs, like vertical software is coming. We're just hitting convenience stores, but there's lots of other retailers and distributors and suppliers, right? So when we were pivoting Bevs in the early days, that was the question. We're like, should we build something for the distributor? Would that be easier? Would that be better? We always defaulted back to like, we are built by a convenience store owner. So like that is our niche. That's what we know. And that's how we get to where we want to go. But so I think the second would be vertical software across food, drink, distribution, retail is coming. And especially with AI tools will make things faster, easier, cheaper. So I'd say those are probably the two I'm seeing the most. The third I'd also say is just around laws and regulations. I think it'll be slower, but the pandemic showed that you can allow more leniency around like order. Like if people want alcohol, they're going to find it. They're always going to get it. Like
Yes.
trying to regulate it doesn't seem to be the way. And I do think more and more states and locations are going to go the mentality of like what they did in the pandemic, where it was like, if you have a license to sell the item, we should let consumers buy it, take it home, pick it up, get it delivered, sort of whatever is helpful. And I think that will sort of empower local businesses, right? Like if I want to order my one of my best friends doesn't drink alcohol but likes to have a beer, so I get non-alcoholic beers. If it was easier, which I hope we're facilitating, to get my local store to have a non-alcoholic beer always visible in the platforms I use like DoorDash, then I would be getting it all the time. But his favorite is Athletic Brewing, and you can't find that everywhere, even though it's usually everywhere, right? But it's getting everywhere. But I end up just buying it direct from Athletic. I'm sure they're thrilled about that. But me, as someone who's trying to sort of empower local businesses, I do think regulations will sort of go down. Technology gets cheaper, stores will get better. I hope, like someone's asked me before, like, what I sort of envision the store once all our technology is there. And it's like, to me, it's we should get to a point where we can take Walmart, Target level technology, customize it, and make it cheap enough and give it to the convenience store. And then they'll really compete, right? When they have that level. So that's what I hope. Those sort of three, lots more CPG and consumer preference, better vertical software, and then some shifts in regulation to sort of allow these local businesses to operate better.
That's great. No, that's really good vision. I like that a lot. On with the non-alcoholic beverages, I was going to ask you earlier if that was a thing, if you're seeing more and more non-alcoholic spirits, non-alcoholic beers kind of infiltrate the convenience piece of our
100%.
business.
Oh, 100%. Is that would be like it? I wouldn't say maybe as dramatic as the seltzer transformation, but absolutely. I mean, not that long ago, it'd be very hard to find a non-alcoholic drink. I'd say I think restaurants and bars are still really far behind. When we go out with my friend, it's still like 50, and we're in like LA. So I'm thinking big major
Right.
cities should be 100% of the time. So no, I think we're not there in the bar restaurant, but like I said earlier, I think convenience stores and liquor stores tend to be the trendsetter because things get in there first. So we're seeing way more. I think also fueling that, which I love, is the bigger brands are partaking. It's like Corona's non-alcoholic seltzer is really good. Heineken Zero has been popular for a long time. Lagunitas launched like a non-alcoholic IPA, which is really good. Tastes exactly like the IPA, and obviously athletic. So yeah, I think we're seeing it in way more stores, and I really hope to see it in way more restaurants and bars. I think more people want it and would drink it. It's another like chicken and the egg scenario. They're like, people aren't really asking, and it's like because they look up your menu and it's not on there, so then they're just like they probably don't have it, and they get a soda. So I think it's coming in hot. LA too. There's a new, I forget the name of it, but like a non-alcoholic retailer. It's a convenience store that is literally all non-alcoholic drinks. I don't know if that's as far as it needs to go, but it's coming. I'm excited
Right.
about it. I like to
That
have
would
my drinks with alcohol in it, so I'm not a participant necessarily, but I'm seeing the change, and I think it's going to keep growing for sure.
That's the first time I've heard of a non-alcoholic convenience store. Now we here in Orlando we have the first cocktail bar, which is fun. They were on the podcast. I've reached out to At Hotel.
Yep.
That's kind of like a high-end chef-driven hotel with all non-alcoholic beverages in it. So it is coming. It is certainly coming, and part of where I am in the industry is that I've leaned into two categories, and this is one of them.
Yeah,
Sake is the other one, and that's to come. But I think it's really important to include everybody when a person
I
walks
agree.
in your restaurant because cocktails are fun. They're fun, and who cares if there's alcohol in them? They're just fun. It's fun to see the little fruit and all the
Yeah,
fixins, and it's just fun. It's
100%.
nice.
Yeah, I just checked. It's right near me. Literally, it's called Boyson in Studio City. It is maybe not a convenience store, maybe not the right word. It looks more like a wine shop, but they sell beer, wine, and spirits, all now non-alcoholic for off-premise consumption. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I also would just like to see. I obviously being someone who's building specifically, I guess we could sell our platform to them, but we're really specifically building for the
Totally.
convenience store. I just like to see them have more of these items, but yeah, it's really interesting. I'm really hyped on the non-alcoholic space, even being someone who doesn't usually do a non-alcoholic drink. I really think it's exciting.
Yeah, I've been exploring it. We're kind of doing dry January around here. Um, and it's been fun just mixing cocktails and exploring what's available.
Yeah,
The cocktail bar also is a retailer, so you can come in
nice.
and buy bottles of wine and
Yeah,
spirits. And so I need to hit that head down there in Orlando and check it out. And maybe I haven't tried any wine,
the wine's been
so I'll have
trickier.
to
Same, we've
explore.
we've tried a couple, and I won't name names. They weren't. We didn't like them. So like all like my friend who doesn't drink, like I'll just like buy all sorts of random stuff that's not alcoholic. The beers have done a really good job. Like they take
Great job. The
seltzers is
beers
fun.
are there.
Yeah, beers are there. Absolutely. Seltzers hard because it is just flavored water then basically if you take the alcohol out. So that's just sparkling water, which is fine. And the wines we
Sparkling water.
haven't
Yep.
really nabbed. I just got one, and some will come from the alcohol brands, right? But one like Better Booch is a kombucha company, and they just launched like a sparkling wine, and we like the kombucha, so I just got that. I haven't tried it. I'll let you know how it tastes. But yeah, I think tell me if you
Yeah.
find a good wine because I've struggled to find a good. It's tricky, right? Will it taste just like grape juice if you take the sort of alcohol component? I think just like beer, I said the same thing a decade ago, where I'm like, how is it really going to taste? And it tastes great. And so I think wine will get there. I've seen spirits get there. So yeah, wine's coming, or it's
Yeah.
here, and I just haven't found the right ones.
Yeah, I think it's trial and error. You got to find which ones that, resonate with you the most,
Yeah,
and that's going to be different for everybody. But I was told last Tales of the Cocktail, there's an event in New Orleans every summer. Claire Warner told me, she was a judge, and so she was saying that there's a lot of really good wines coming.
nice.
Um, Chris Scott, who is a WSET level educator of wine, he's excited about it. He's excited about orange wine. So, yes, I will combine a list and let you know, because I've been interviewing a few people,
Yeah,
also, that I've been introduced to. So I'm super super stoked about what they are, because it's kind of nice. It's really kind of nice to have those alternatives.
100%.
I drink Athletic Brewing all the time.
Yeah, no, it's great.
They're
I honestly think I wouldn't know if you
Yeah.
poured me the athletic IPA, and you poured me like another IPA. I don't think I'd know the difference at this point. Honestly, it's great.
Yeah, it's the taste.
Yeah,
It's the
exactly.
flavor that I care about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, do you have any passions outside of work? I know you like to visit with your families, or other things that you like to do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely startup life takes a lot of my time in life. I think the couple things outside, well, one's adjacent to startups. Like I said, I am trying to make more time to give back to the startup community. So I do really enjoy, like we all make so many mistakes. We learn so much along the way. You asked me what mentors I had. I wouldn't be here without those. So I'm trying to make a point. So I'm an advisor to one company. It's very similar to Bevs, but for pharmacies, called RX Post. Really cool software for pharmacies. So I'm like really enjoying just dedicating a little time to advising startups. That's one. Family for sure, but I'll hone in. Niece is 4 years old now. Really fun age. One and two, harder to obviously relate with a child when they're like a literal baby. As she's like 4 years old, we went to like the snow this last winter in Utah. And so 4 year old niece is a hoot. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. Outside of that, I mean, I'm a big basketball fan. Played basketball. Obviously, that's how Victor and I met. I still really enjoy it. I'm trying to make time to do a little more playing. I'll watch it, but I enjoy playing. And then recently, my brother and I have been doing boxing lessons, which is fun. So more as a fitness, like not to go train and professionally box. I'm pretty small, so if you saw me in real life, you'd be like, basketball and boxing, probably not like the best for you. But it's a really tough workout. Like way harder
It
than I
is.
thought.
I mean, you're
Punching after like a
punching, and
minute,
then you're kicking,
I'm
and
like, oh my God,
then,
I'm super
uh,
tired. And then they do crazy ab workouts. So hobbies outside of work have been basketball and some boxing lately, which has been fun.
nice. That's awesome. Really good calorie
Yeah.
burners.
Hey, I'm sitting in this chair a lot, so gotta find
I
my
know.
calorie burners, especially when it was startup life and school. I just barely exercised, basically, right? I was not in the healthiest I've been. So now, not that startup is easy, it's absolutely not, but no school. I like need to get, I can't just keep blaming this. It's a startup, so I'm just gonna not work out ever. So trying to eat healthy, trying to get some exercise in, trying to make them those like quick workouts that have a lot of impact, right? So it's like that boxing workout. I'm
Impact.
like, that was like 4 workouts in one. Boom. Now I don't have to work out the whole month. Just kidding. No. So that's what I'm sort of looking at.
Yeah, because I go to Hot Works, but that's, it's a 45-minute workout. It's a 15-minute one way. Or I started this V Shred this summer, and they're 20-minute workouts I can do in the
Yeah.
garage. It's
I
great.
love the home workout stuff.
High impact.
Love it.
Yeah, and it's a circuit, so you get your heart rate up,
Yep.
and then you're shower and you're back
Yeah,
in
back ready
back in the
to
chair within an hour.
ready to work more.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this has been a pure pleasure, Jason. I'm super excited about what you're doing. I think, convenience stores certainly need someone to be, looking after them. And I think you've really hit a huge home run here with how you can do that. Technology is certainly needed in every channel, and if they don't have what they need, then then you're their solution, which I think is pretty exciting. And you're focused on the independents also. And that bravo. I love your experience. I love that you're not tech writer. You're everything else that a company needs in a leader. So I think that's super important to get the right people to build the right company. So congratulations. I'm very excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is a really fun conversation. As you could see, I could talk about this stuff all day, but yeah, a lot of work to do.
It is fun.
But it's fun. It's a fun sector to be in. Things are changing fast and slow at the same time, and it's exciting. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll have to keep in touch, and I want to know how you're progressing. So we'll have to touch base here in a few months.
I'm up for that. Reach out anytime. I'm ready to talk drinks and food and tech. My 3 things.
Well, I do have a new segment for owners and brands to, if you have a big release that you want to talk about, that's like maybe you're saying, hey, we want to reach out to brands, you could come on. It's just a 10 to 15 minute segment. It's just real quick and easy.
Yeah.
You can always ping me and come back on and we can just talk about that release.
Works for me. I will most likely take you up on that.
Yeah, let's do
it. Cool. Awesome.
All right, Jason. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tune in next Thursday and have a great week. This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.